What's going on, everybody? It's me, Brandon, back again with another episode, and today we are talking about Resident Evil Requiem, the ninth mainline entry in the Resident Evil franchise. So this is a big deal. This is a huge new game. I decided to pick it up for the Nintendo Switch 2, and I gotta say, this was quite an experience. Let's go ahead and talk about RE9. Resident Evil Requiem is the ninth major entry in the series, and to shake things up this time around, I decided to play this on the Nintendo Switch 2. As Nintendo and Capcom seem to be championing this game on the Nintendo Switch 2, I decided to dive in with the Generation Pack, offering the recent trilogy of mainline games, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, Resident Evil 8 Village, and of course, Resident Evil 9 Requiem, in one complete package that was really hard to say no to. Anyways, back on track. Resident Evil Requiem is the ninth entry in the mainline series of games for the franchise, and this latest entry follows Grace Ashcroft, the daughter of Resident Evil Outbreak's Alyssa Ashcroft, and fan favorite hero Leon S. Kennedy, trying to stop the latest viral outbreak and confronting the past. Resident Evil 9, in short, is fantastic. I dove right into this game on Friday, right after work, and was completely hooked. There was a magic to this game that I have not felt like since Resident Evil 2 Remake. I found that Resident Evil 9 learned from everything that came before it, pulling from the highs and lows of the recent entries and trying to make the perfect balance for a Resident Evil game. Requiem takes into account the criticisms of both Resident Evil 7 and 8, where it takes the best bits of both and compacts them into an incredible horror experience, not only delivering some of the best scares of the recent Resident Evil games, but also building upon them in terms of the franchise lore, solid gameplay, and as always, the fresh and terrifying designs of the creatures and world. Adding the perspective shift to Requiem was a great touch. For those who prefer Resident Evil to be third person, you can play that way, or those who prefer the first person perspective as well, or you can go with what Capcom recommends, and that is the choice that I went through in this first playthrough, which was Grace in first person perspective and Leon in the third person perspective. Each character plays completely different from the other. As we play as Grace, we are reminded of those dreadful times in the Louisiana backwoods where the horror is arguably at its strongest in the first person setting. Grace also adds to the tension with great feedback and panic as she is experiencing these horrors. Leon, on the other hand, plays like a high octane action game. Bear with me here, this game takes the best aspects of the third-person Resident Evil games, and then just like I said earlier with the first-person gameplay, takes all the best bits and makes an exceptional experience. The third-person experience for Resident Evil 9 was an absolute delight, as the gameplay was a fresh palate cleanse, with it following the Grace sections of the game where the tension is cranked to max. As Leon, you lay waste to the zombies and the creatures that stand in your way. Bloodshed, high violence, and total non-stop mayhem. It's insanity in Resident Evil's best way. I honestly have felt so much Resident Evil 6 nostalgia while playing Resident Evil 9 because that gameplay in that game was crazy. As someone who appreciated even the lowest form of Resident Evil with its sixth entry, this game brought a huge smile to my face, seeing a fully realized version of what the game was trying to be back in 2012. Alright, before we talk about any more of Resident Evil Requiem, I need to talk about the magic that was the Nintendo Switch 2 port. As someone who has been a big supporter of the Nintendo Switch, testing out all of the big ports that have come over to the original Nintendo Switch, such as The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Doom 2016, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, and even passed up other versions and dedicated my time to the Nintendo Switch because I wanted to support the machine I've always dreamed of as a kid. Well, with the Nintendo Switch 2, a new generation emerges with better power and hardware under the hood, which had me skeptical on the jump in power. But as of late, with the dream ports becoming a reality with titles like Final Fantasy VII Remake, we are blessed with not only one, but 3 Resident Evil games targeting 60 frames per second, native ports, and one of them is, of course, this game, Resident Evil Requiem. In short, Requiem is simply a dream on the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't know how Capcom did it, but the miracle that is Requiem on the Nintendo Switch 2 is outstanding. I am blown away by the graphical fidelity and performance of the Nintendo Switch 2 port of Resident Evil 9. There are some slight shortcomings like textures and hair, but truly, I can take those minor hits for an incredible portable version of a cutting-edge 2026 release on a handheld like the Switch 2. Throughout my time of Requiem on the Nintendo Switch 2, I was essentially at a constant 60 frames per second throughout my playthrough. There were a few hiccups here and there, but in complete honesty, I only experienced the slowdown in one segment of the game where the Switch seemed to dip down in frame rate. I cannot overstate enough just how perfect my experience was of Resident Evil 9 on the Switch 2. Here are a couple screenshots of my time across the campaign of RE9 on the Switch, where I was genuinely terrified with a smile on my face. It is not often I get to play a game and feel complete joy. Those days are far and few between, where I know I'm truly playing something that is making me feel just like a kid again with that sense of wonder and excitement. Resident Evil is one of my favorite video game franchises. Ever since I was first introduced to the series formally with Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube, I was a fan, but even before that, seeing the franchise for the literal first time with Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation, it was something that captured my attention and never let go. I've been with Resident Evil through the highs and lows. I went to the midnight launch of Resident Evil 6 back in 2012 with the dream of it being the biggest entry in the series. Well, with the game not being a cultural touchstone I hoped it would be, it was quite the opposite. However, I still did find Resident Evil 6 enjoyable in ways such as the Chris campaign and some of the other character interactions and themes throughout that game. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is I love Resident Evil, and seeing it from arguably its worst form during the Resident Evil 6 hype cycle, seeing Resident Evil come back stronger than ever with 2017's Resident Evil 7 Biohazard acting as a soft reboot for the series at the time felt like a phoenix rising from the ashes and restoring itself to its former glory, but ascending to brand new heights thanks to Capcom delivering on all fronts since 2016. Seeing this franchise go from Resident Evil 6 to climbing the ladder, getting better with every entry since the grand return of survival horror with Resident Evil 7 in 2017, and continuing onward with not only awesome remakes such as the incredible Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4, but another great entry in the mainline series with Resident Evil Village. Requiem joins the ranks of yet another fantastic entry in the Resident Evil series, but this time Capcom crafted one hell of an adventure with the best mix of horror and action the franchise has seen in a long time. Don't let this be an understatement. This game is truly terrifying and may be Resident Evil's shining example of how to do it. RE9, as I said earlier, blends all of the best aspects from everything that came before it. The original trilogy's vision, the remakes, the entire narrative since the beginning of all of this, and the absolute horror that ensues over the course of this franchise into one perfect entry. The zombies and the infected creatures that we come across are incredibly detailed, as they aren't the standard fare for zombies. We will encounter zombies with traits of their lives before the infection. With this update to The Walking Dead, we encounter some chilling zombies, singing zombies humming an unsettling tune as you walk through the flickering corridors, former doctors screaming with unease and hatred, and maids stuck in their old ways, frantically pacing and vandalizing with bloodstains all over the place. Hearing the blood-curdling screams as you sneak across the halls as Grace, trying to avoid any unnecessary evil, is terrifying. The zombies in this game are sponges and are true threats across this campaign. However, when we get to Leon, the zombies are not a threat. Leon is the threat, and absolute chaos happens. It is insanity to the highest level, with chainsaws, axe throwing, guns, and blades blaze of explosives and the franchise's most action-packed combat featuring Leon in this game. In closing, Resident Evil Requiem was an incredible experience. In my opinion, the biggest flaw about this game was simply how much of the game Capcom showed off before this game even came out. I feel like I was seeing this game time and time again, with a little more footage each time, especially when I wasn't even seeking it out. I originally had this game pre-ordered for PC, ready to add it among the rest of my Resident Evil collection, but at last minute, I decided to shake things up and dive into the Switch 2 version, thanks to the Generation Pack for about $80 or $90. I got not only RE9, but also Resident Evil 7 and 8, again, native versions for the Switch 2, which was really hard to say no to. Not only was Resident Evil 9 an amazing game by all means, but pairing it with the simple fact that this game is fully capable and stands toe-to-toe with other versions of this game shows that the Switch 2 can really handle its own. When a developer puts this much care and effort into their game and optimizes the hell out of it, you get a jaw-dropping experience like Requiem on the Switch 2. Resident Evil 9 has become the best experience I have had on the Nintendo Switch 2, thanks to the absolutely incredible port that this is. Playing a new Resident Evil game day and date with minor shortcomings in comparison to the other counterparts made me feel like I was experiencing the Resident Evil franchise on the GameCube all those years ago for the very first time. Resident Evil 9 is a gold standard for what I come to expect from Resident Evil in 2026. Somehow, someway, we still find the needle moving for this franchise. Resident Evil 9 was a dream come true and a game that surprised me in nearly every way. From me being introduced to this series formally with Resident Evil 4, and then going back and ingratiating myself in the rich lore and history of Resident Evil after finishing Resident Evil 4 all those years ago, Resident Evil is one of my favorite franchises for a reason. Whether new or old, Requiem will serve up a massive dish in front of you for whoever chooses to play it. However, those with the ties and history of the past Resident Evil games will walk into Requiem being well served with only the best Capcom can serve you. Resident Evil 9 isn't just a game, it's an experience, diving into the history of one of video games' greatest protagonists and introducing us to even more incredible lore for this franchise. Resident Evil Requiem is a killer app in the franchise that stands toe-to-toe with the series' best entries. Resident Evil 9 Requiem was a awesome experience. As somebody who loves playing portable games, man, RE9 was such a treat. I decided at the very last minute to go ahead and buy this for the Nintendo Switch, and playing it on my Switch 2, oh my goodness, as I've already said in the video, just an insane experience to get games and quality to this degree on a device this thin. Like, not on my Steam Deck, pretty solid 60 frames for the most part. Incredible experience. I played actually a lot docked with the headphones on. I also played portable with the headphones on, full surround sound, I believe, with my noise canceling headphones, and oh my god, I loved it. I loved every second of Resident Evil 9. I was really annoyed kind of with this game, as I said in the video already, where I felt like I was just seeing so much of this game. Everybody's like, are you excited for Resident Evil 9? And I'm like, yes, but we see this game everywhere. Every Nintendo Direct, PlayStation Direct, some Xbox event, you know, the Game of the Year awards and all this other stuff. It just, we kept seeing slices and different scenes, and I'm not even looking for trailers on this game, but I am happy that I avoided a bulk of the later stuff, because it seems like in the trailers there's always a sprinkle of like, oh, that would have been a really cool natural experience, and thankfully I experienced it naturally. I do love getting so much information about video games, especially video games I do care about. Resident Evil 6, as I mentioned in the video, was a game that I milked the absolute crap out of before the game came out. I was trying to figure out everything going on. Why is Chris here? Why is Leon here? Sherry's here, like all this other stuff. Like, let's figure out what is going on in Resident Evil 6. And I was a little bit hesitant going into 9 because I was like, the last time they kept saying we're going to split up campaigns was Resident Evil 6. But I think Resident Evil 9 is a great precursor to a potential Resident Evil 6 remake. I think if we can get Resident Evil 6 fully remade, a proper story with the action combat set pieces that was essentially Leon's part of RE9, I think we could have something really special on our hands. But that is the end of this episode today. I really hope you enjoyed it. Are you a Nintendo Switch 2 owner? Do you have the Generations Pack? Did you just buy Resident Evil 9? Are you considering buying any of the Resident Evil games on the Nintendo Switch 2 that have native ports now, which is just so cool? And I hope later on this year we get an announcement of 2 Remake, 3 Remake, and 4 Remake coming as a native port to the Switch 2. I will totally pick those up as well. But please let me know in the comments down below. As always, my name is Brandon, and I will see you all next time.